Bronwyn, Niigaan, thanks so much for being with us. Niigaan, as I mentioned in the intro, a deadly week for Indigenous peoples and interactions with law enforcement, all coming ahead of a verdict in another high-profile case in Manitoba involving the death of William Amo, a correctional officer charged there. Just your thoughts over the past week here.
Well, the closest I have been working with is with the Amo family. I know William's mother very well, and I know William's son. This has reverberated throughout not just the Amo family, but also throughout the entirety of everybody related to the family. This death and the horrendous deaths that have occurred in the Indigenous community over the past week has been a reminder that while we may at times see justice, such as in the Skibitsky trial, we continue to not see institutions change, things like prisons, or in the case of the Winnipeg police officers' treatment of a woman in an encampment. It may have been an accident, but the reality is that there is a ongoing situation of poverty, and multiple institutions are incapable of dealing, which has been our inheritance of colonialism and an ongoing genocide that's taking place in Indigenous communities right in front of us on the streets of Winnipeg.
Bronwyn, thanks for joining us this week. Appreciate that. But you teach courses on race in the criminal justice system and colonialism in the criminal justice system. Niigaan's touching on it there, but can you talk about the conditions that make police violence more likely?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and thanks for asking that question. I think that sometimes we get into kind of mental gymnastics about what the causes of police violence are, and really fundamentally the causes of police violence are policing itself. The surest way to reduce police violence, the surest evidence-based way, is to reduce people's contact with the police. And instead, what we've seen over a few decades of decision-making in Winnipeg and Manitoba now is the steady creation of a situation where when people are in crisis, when people have emergencies, or even when people aren't in crisis and don't have emergencies, they are more likely to be responded to by the police rather than some other type of service response. So the conditions that make people vulnerable to interpersonal violence are actually really similar to the conditions that make people vulnerable to police violence. And those are the conditions that reduce people's power over their own lives, the conditions that reduce the spaces that people are allowed to exist in ways of their choosing, the conditions that cause people to be scrutinized for having needs that are visible. I think that the movement to defund and detask the police is really about reducing violence of all kinds, in this sense of the more that we can empower a range of responses to people's problems that they can access in ways of their choosing, the more we will see people protected from violence, including police violence.
Niigaan, there are calls for accountability here in Winnipeg, also in Samson Cree Nation. What can the Indigenous community do to hold police accountable?
No one has ever said we need to get rid of all police and not have police. I mean, that's the biggest misnomer and misunderstanding. The Indigenous community is taking the lead in different imaginations, different ways in which police systems can truly be about justice. What they can be is about systems that show evidence of love, of kindness, of empathy, and oftentimes there has to be at times a use of people to in the areas of protection, particularly people who have arms, who have protective means that can help communities. Indigenous peoples are fully aware of that. But at the same time, the ways in which Indigenous communities offer justice is about restorative practices. It's about trying to build a community and also be proactive. And so we have to reimagine policing as not just something that's reactive or something that deals with on the end of situations, oftentimes highly conflictual, often full of historical mistrust, often turn to violence very quickly. But think about the ways that policing that is being done in areas of justice and empathy, which are being led in the streets of Winnipeg, this various street patrols for Mama Bear Clan Initiative, all these different organizations, because what they do is they lead with proactive instances of empathy, caring, kindness, and love. And that's what justice should ultimately be about. It should be about building community, not about throwing people into jail, not about creating more conflict and division, and certainly not about violence.
Bronwyn, in both of these cases, the Alberta and the Manitoba Provincial Police watchdogs are looking into these incidents, as they always do. But it's been expressed that there's not exactly a lot of faith in those systems either. Should Indigenous peoples have reason to be concerned about these independent institutions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're independent in name, but the IIU in Winnipeg hires former police officers as its investigators. And all we need to do is look at the kind of outcomes of IIU investigations to see that the IIU is very reluctant to prosecute police officers who have caused death or bodily harm. And even if they were going to prosecute them, would that really be justice when we see that this is a pattern, that police are allowed to act with impunity, that the fundamental power of policing, which is the use of discretion, allows them to use violence. So this again comes back to the idea that, the problem isn't police officers not being held accountable so much as it is policing as a response to social problems. I think that's something that has been done so effectively in Winnipeg, and that I'm really grateful to the APTN for covering, is families' advocacy in relation to the deaths of their loved ones at the hands of police and prison guards. One of the things that I think is so infuriating for people who are dealing with police or prison guard violence is that there's no place for them to put their stories and have them be believed, because it's always set up as this, it's your word against the cop or whatever. But families have really done hard work to kind of push and carve out spaces to say, this is our story. We're angry about it. We loved this person was loved. And to make connections across those families and to support those families is, I think, part of the important political work that needs to be done to reduce police violence. I don't think we should have faith in these technical or bureaucratic investigative processes. This is really a political question about where we allocate resources for responding to people's problems, and about how we build, systems and societies where people's lives matter more than property. Yeah, I think that there's reason to be suspect of the IIU for sure.
Bronwyn, Niigaan, we'll have to leave it there. Appreciate you both weighing in on this issue this week.
Miigwech, thanks so much.
Thank you.